Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BBC. This BBC has nothing to do with Britain. This is the BBC, the Big Buccaneer channel, as in the Oceanside Pirates and Buccaneer Beach. Welcome to the BBC, the Oceanside Station.
This is the New Year's Day 2025 edition of the Big Buccaneer channel, www.osidebbc.com. It's the Oceanside Station. Thank you very much for joining us on this first episode of the new year. And today we've got a cool discussion with a homegrown guy, Alan Carrasco of Carrasco Creative Media. He's got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and we thought what we do today is to give a list of what's up, what to look forward to, and what to look out for in the coming year in 2025. So instead of our normal news segment, we're going to talk about what are some of the big signposts that are coming in the new year. And then later on, we're going to have a segment we're called Be It Resolved. We're going to have New Year's resolutions that pertain to Oceanside for the year 2025. So let's start with our segment, What's Up in Oceanside in 2025. This is the Oceanside Station, the Big Buccaneer channel, www.osidebbc.com, where we come to you with a fresh new segment every Wednesday, every week. This is our very first edition of Oside BBC for 2025. So what we thought we'd do this time, instead of having our news segment where we have like 3 or 4 news items, we thought we would look ahead to 2025 and talk about realities that we think we're going to face going into the new year for those of us who are fortunate enough to live in Oceanside. In the past, people of Oceanside has spoke up and won. They spoke to the power of the big guy and they won. And that would include the Manchester development, which was a private development that good old Doug Manchester wanted to put on public parkland. He got beaten back. Then there was North River Farms, where people got out, put it on the ballot, and they won 2-1. And the Planning Commission said no twice. The city staff said no. Yet 3 council people voted to go through with it. And that's what happened. So that was kind of a mixed bag there. But now people are getting up in arms and they're speaking truth to power with the so-called Eddie Jones development, which is a 31-acre site right between 76 and Mission Avenue. Used to be the home of the TE Connectivity campus. And they want to build, a developer wants to build 4 warehouses, which will end up creating 400 to 500 square feet of warehouse storage space. Now, these folks in Oceanside who are neighbors who don't want it to happen have been having public protests on street corners, and they're going to city council meetings, and they're saying, we have more going for us, for God's sakes, than San Bernardino or Ontario. We don't want to be just another storage area, another Amazon hub. We don't need to have to settle for cheap and easy. Carlsbad has all the good stuff. Why can't we get some good development besides just storage? So that's a major vote that's going to happen before the city council, and people are up in arms. That's going to be maybe the major issue of 2025, if you ask me. Also, on the horizon for Oceanside in 2025, council members might vacate the city council to run for higher office. We told you here last week that we hear that council member Eric Joyce of District 1 may want to move up to the county Board of Supervisors and run for the North County D5 seat, since Jim Desmond is termed out after 2 4-year terms. He's probably going to have to announce that real soon, real early in 2025. The big question is, will Mayor Sanchez run, as we heard that she may, for the assembly seat currently held by Orange County's Lori Davies, which she was barely reelected to in November, and which she in fact lost in the North County section of the district. And also what to look for in 2025. New restaurants are coming. Opening in February is Odie's Pizza at 121 North Cleveland. And their big deal is they ferment their sourdough before they, for like 48 hours before they put it on the pizza tray or pizza pan, whatever you want to call it. They've got 28 beers on tap. And also, after a year of being dormant, the former yellow building, historic building called I think it's called the Wetzel House. It was for many years the Hill Street Cafe, and then Les Citrons at 524 North Coast Highway. That yellow house is going to be rechristened as a dinner house called the Victorian, and they're planned to open in the spring. And that's all being put together by owners Dave and Emily Rassel, who also own Frankie's, the high-end downtown cocktail lounge, and the Poorhouse in South O. And what will happen next door at Linksole is still up in the air. Of course, that's been the home for the Hill Street Country Club, which creates art shows and community and cultural events. All that's happening will probably happen and come together in 25. And coming also to Oceanside in 2025, look to traffic becoming a big issue. Now, many people have complained about high speed and noisy traffic on Coast Highway, and they've also complained about super fast traffic, very unsafe traffic on Vista Way. But no one on the city council has seemed to do a damn thing about it. Well, we think that's going to change with the election of Jimmy Figueroa, who says while he was out knocking door to door in his District 3, he said he heard loud and clear that people want something to finally be done about all this traffic issue, the speeding and the noise. So I predict that will come before the council, and I am optimistic that the council will finally act on that issue. Now, in another traffic area, when the new 3-story dwelling complex opens on Coast Highway and Moore Street, that's kitty corner from the South O Brewing Company, where they found toxic soil and they had to remove that soil. Well, they finally removed it. Well, when Shea Homes is going to be building a 3-story, complex, look for the first ever, I think, in Oceanside, assigned parking in public streets. where all the adjacent housing around it they can create a district and pay to have reserved parking in front of their own damn house. And this is going to be necessitated because this neighborhood will be overwhelmed with parking, because this new Shea Homes development will have 3 bedrooms but only have 1 parking spot. So in other words, for every 1 parking spot they have, they're going to have 3 bedrooms. That's going to overwhelm that neck of the woods. So look for assigned parking coming to you in 2025 in South Oceanside. And will, in 2025, Oceanside see its first downtown honky-tonk since the Rusty Spur, which is now Frankie's. That's the stated plan for the space on the corner of Coast Highway and Pierview Way. It's sort of an eyesore now. It's all boarded up. But we're promised that when it's all said and done, we'll have a honky-tonk with barbecue, country music, and, God forbid, line dancing. But who am I to judge? It's progress. All right, looking ahead to 2025, will Oceanside will get its first safe parking facility following Vista and Encinitas, who already have theirs. They're open and running, and that's where some 30 cars are going to be able to park here overnight from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., allowing car owners who have a car but don't have a home a safe place to park overnight and sleep. This new facility has been approved by the council, and it's on Apple Street in the parking area of the new home of the North County LGBTQ Center, formerly the Bread of Life Ministries. And coming to Oceanside in 2025, following 2 horrendous summertime assaults where people with baseball bats, would come and attack campers randomly on the Harbor Beach overnight RV park area, Oceanside will install 51 new security cameras throughout Oceanside Harbor, and the OPD police will continue to regularly patrol twice an hour all day from noon to midnight at the harbor. So they stepped that up, and that's going to continue in this coming year. On the horizon in Oceanside for 2025, for the first time, graduation ceremonies for both Oceanside High and El Camino High will be held at the Front Wave Arena. And that's the first time that's happening, and then look for it, of course, at the end of the school year. Also in 2025, used car lots will continue to disappear from Coast Highway. Now, this started when the city, I think 5 or 6 years ago, denied a plan to reopen a used car lot on Coast Highway where Crackhead's restaurant is now, which is right next, just north of the Yellow Victorian House. And so no more car lot there. It's now the Crackhead's restaurant group of restaurants. And then came the car lot on Coast Highway and Whaley in South O, which is still there, but they're having trouble getting rid of the cars because the landlord, who I guess inherited these cars when the owner of the used car lot fled or whatever, you just can't take the cars and sell them. You have to go through the DMV, so it's a big complex thing. Anyway, that's happening, but that went away as a business, and now look for yet another used car lot to go away, just north of Oceanside Boulevard on Coast Highway, sort of across the street from 31 Flavors. And that used car lot is set to be replaced by low-income housing. Also, what to look for in this coming year, 2025 will the old 99-cent store building get a new tenant? Most of their furnishings are still there. I think the landlord was hoping that another store like 99-cent store would come in, but I don't think that happened. Will Big Lots go retail or residential or a combination of both? I don't think there has been a plan announced for either the formerly 99-cent store on the corner of Horn and Mission or the Big Lots store on Oceanside Boulevard. And finally, looking ahead to 2025, will this be the year that the pier will finally be finished and the fire damage removed and people can walk out to the end of the pier? Well, the answer is no. The public will not be able to use the end of the pier. It's going to be a year or two. Even though the demolition is just now wrapping up, the city must now go in and check the integrity of the pilings before they can then reinstall the new base planks. Meanwhile, it will be 3 to 4 years before the new lifeguard headquarters that they're going to build, where the Tin Fish restaurant is now, sort of at the base of the pier, up against the cliff there. It's going to be 3 to 4 years before they break ground on that, so do not hold your breath on the new lifeguard headquarters. And the re-beach plan, which will include building headlands and artificial reefs, that is not going to start until 2026. So again, do not be holding your breath for the re-beach stuff to be happening in 2025. That is simply not going to happen until next year, 2026. And what they're going to be doing is for the segment of the beach area where the strand is between Wisconsin Street north to Tyson Street, they're going to be building the first phase of the re-beach plan, and it's going to be involving building headlands and some artificial reefs, of course, out in the ocean. What the headlands are is they sort of build a little, like a walkway or a little extended beach area surrounded by big boulders, but instead of a jetty of big boulders just going straight out into the ocean, these are going to be headlands, and so it's sort of like a semicircle of boulders filled in with sand, and that's approved. It's going to happen, but it's not going to happen until and be ready to be, seen and enjoyed until 2026. And that's how the Big Buccaneer Channel looks forward to the year 2025. Voted the best Indian restaurant by San Diego Magazine this year, Curry and More on Mission Avenue in downtown Oceanside is proof that A-list restaurants are right here in town. Stop by and say hello to owner-operator, chef, greeter, Obi, who actually won the 2020 edition of TV's Beat Bobby Flay. Curry and More makes everything from scratch, including such wonderful favorites as coconut chicken, lamb korma, chicken masala, and mango lassi. Curry and More lunch specials include your entree, naan bread, salad, rice, and lentils. Curry and More on the corner of Freeman and Mission, open for lunch 7 days a week, 12 to 3, and then for dinner 4:30 to 9, except Sunday when they close at 8. Curry and More, an Oceanside treasure. This is the Big Buccaneer Channel, www.osidebbc.com, where it's all Oceanside all the time. Thank you for listening today. This is our premiere show for 2025. And with us is a very special guest, the homegrown Alan Carrasco. Alan, I've known you for about 40 years. Thank you for being here with us on this first show here for 2025 for the BBC. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having. You know, it's funny. I was just sitting here for a moment right now, and the first thing that comes to my mind is when you used to. Do you manage incognito?
Okay.
Right?
In another lifetime, yes.
You had another lifetime. I mean, that's you said going back 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
That was like your original timing on that.
And you were kicking with. You were graduated with. Well, we'll start right in. I was going to wait on this, but we might as well go and do it.
Whatever.
You graduated from El Camino High School in 1980, which, by the way, was the first.
Was the first 4-year class
where you went in as a freshman at El Camino, and then you graduated in
1980.
Right. And anyway, Stevie Salas was also in your class.
Yeah, Stevie and I grew up together. I grew up on Skylark, and Stevie grew up on Sorbonne.
All right. And Stevie, for those who don't know, who maybe just moved to Oceanside, I mean, I take it for granted, but not everyone has lived in Oceanside as long as we have. Stevie Salas is a legitimate kind of a rock star guy. And
very much.
You just saw him today. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, so back in the day, in the early 80s, when...
So when we grew up, you know, I'm a product of Oceanside, so... here at Palmquist Elementary, then Lincoln Junior High, and then El Camino. I had older brothers and a sister who also went through Oceanside High. And I grew up on Skylark. You know, my backyard over the slope was the railroad tracks and like all the industrial backdrop there with like Lavasi and the distribution chain from Oceanside at the time. So, and when I moved here, I was like 2 years old from Riverside. So I've been here for 60 years. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, I was originally from Riverside. My family migrated here.
All right. And when we had a segment a few weeks ago where you talked about what it takes to get a park named after you in Oceanside, I was thinking about, I go, oh, John Frenzel. My mom knew John Frenzel when she went to Oceanside High School. Graduated with John Frenzel's daughter, who married her Meyer. There's a park named after John Frenzel here on Cassidy Street. Mance Buchanan, married to Ethel, and of course they were the parents of Willie Buchanan.
Right.
And Ethel went to high school with, I think, my dad, Oceanside High, class of, I think, 47. And Mance Buchanan has a park named after him. Jim Wood, who was a policeman and on the city council for many years. He has a park named after him, Rancho Del Oro. And Melba Bishop,
Right.
I spoke with regularly on the phone for the last 25 years of her life. She has a park named after her. And there is another park similarly named to Alan Carrasco, and it's Joe Carrasco Park. Tell us your connection to this Joe Carrasco guy.
Well, I knew him pretty well. He was my dad.
Yes.
Right? And we grew up on Skylark, which is, as you pull up in that Skylark Terrace, you split go to the left, and it's Skylark Drive, and it goes up from there, and you've got Partridge and Cornish are the two streets at the top of the hill. And so we grew up playing ball in the street. You know, we played, baseball. We hit golf balls. We flew kites and frisbees. And I had, that neighborhood was a collection of like these kids that were all about the same age. I was the youngest. I was probably, 6 or 7 years old, and we were playing tackle football with the kids that were in high school. And we would all go to Lincoln Junior High and play tackle football, and we had a great time growing up in that neighborhood. And so my dad was in the mix. He was kind of like the dad of the neighborhood. And so, and all of my older brothers' families, there's quite a few that lived up there that were like the Wilcoxes, and you were saying your buddy
David Hippie.
Hippie.
He was
Exactly.
my age.
Right.
And we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, okay, well, I guess.
So I'm
it's
just
time to
saying
talk
this
about
is
it now.
that,
Yeah.
you know, there was a period of time where Skylark Terrace, the hills had slid down from underneath these houses, and the foundations were letting loose on Partridge, and there was like a dozen homes up there. And, you know, my dad kind of rallied for the neighborhood, and he went to the general contractor who had built that originally, and you know, it was his work. He claimed it, you know. And so my dad went to the state, he went to the insurance companies, and he fought for to the city council and some other places, and he was responsible for getting those people, you know, paid out, and he helped them move their property and help them secure their homes at the time.
Unbelievable. I if I knew that, I'd forgotten it. But the point is he did get so the park, it's Joe Carrasco Park.
Right.
That's the area that collapsed.
It's the area that collapsed, and so they decided to flatten the area out and grade it, and they turned it into a park. Well, when my father had passed, and right after that happened, and so people were still really emotionally connected to my dad, and being the one who really helped the neighbors. And so they went to the city council, and they rallied to have the park named after my dad. And it says Joe Carrasco, affectionately known as Mr. C, that's what my friends all called him, a neighbor who cared for others.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's so cool.
That is very
Little
cool.
monument up there, you know.
Boy, those were. I remember when that happened. It was early '70s, and as I mentioned, David Hippie, his family. It was from what I heard, they lost their house.
Right.
I mean, it just.
That happened on the other side. That happened on Skylark side. That was on that big grade, and that was just across from Partridge. As you head up the hill, it's on the north side.
All right. So you have progressed. You have 2 grown kids now.
Right.
Beautiful wife. I mean, she's done modeling. Let's be honest, right? I mean,
who's that? My kids or my wife?
Your wife for sure. But does your daughter? Does she?
Well, it's interesting is my wife, as probably you know, for 30 years had Dance Unlimited, where there was like 500 families, which means 500 sets of parents in the community for 30 years. And so, and my daughter grew up there in the dance. And I was, you know, shooting a lot of TV commercials and still photography and brochures and catalogs. And I would always grab my daughter and my kids and put them in the spot because they were just really comfortable and I could always depend on them. And so, that was kind of fun.
But your wife was in a lot of those commercials. Right?
She is. She's done a couple of Toyota Carlsbad commercials, some editorials. In fact, the Oside magazine did an editorial on her because she now runs a Alma Rescue Foundation, which rescues dogs from Baja.
All right. This is the BBC, and we are speaking with Alan Carrasco of Carrasco Creative Media. And, sir, I just visited yesterday your new digs, and you're very proud of them, and I'm very impressed. We don't necessarily need to give the address or the exact location, right? Or do we?
It's 408.
Okay.
It's Cassie Street.
I just want to make sure
Sure.
in case.
Glad to.
But it's got it. You obviously have security and stuff.
I do. It's hard to find. It's a nice little, it's a side entry, which is I prefer.
But the fact is we're very primitive here in these Oside BBC studios, but you have created a magnificent studio setup for audio and video, and you've done a couple of interviews.
Yeah, the podcast, it's a video multi-camera podcast studio.
And you've figured out your own technology. You know how to run everything. And congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll never get, but good for you. And I got to have, of course, Vaughn here to sort it out for us. But where can people view your stuff that you've made already?
Well, CarrascoCreative.com is my website. And I'm one of those guys, where, the plumbers has leaky plumbing, or the cobbler, needs new shoes. So my website is good. It's not great. I like it. It was good at the moment. Another project for me to update, but Carrasco Creative Media is my website. I'm taking this time right now to upgrade everything.
All right. So, but the point is if somebody wants to make, and let's face it, for the last 20 years, advertising has transitioned. Mm-hmm. And but if somebody wants to make, a locally produced video, mm-hmm. You're the guy to see.
Yeah, I did Toyota Carlsbad 30-second TV spots for many years. Lexus, BMW. I traveled with Penske Automotive, mm-hmm. AutoNation. I've done a lot of commercials. I produced probably 45 30-minute national TV shows. So the video thing is what we do best. And I've got a lot of shooters. What actually is crazy, my son Landon is a professional drone operator and is a really fantastic editor. He and I are working a lot together now. He's 27 years old, and my daughter just graduated from Art Center Pasadena, and she's a fashion photographer. She's just phenomenally talented. And so I often will pull them in just to have a fresh eye, but we do a lot of video production under roof. It's a lot of fun.
That's very cool. And in fact, today you met with Stevie Salas again,
right?
And you're working on a project with him too.
Yeah, Stevie and I grew up together. He grew up on Sarbonne. I grew up on Skylark, where it's the streets right next to each other. So he and I have had history since we were children. We played popular football together and baseball together, and we graduated from high school together. And I was there when he got his first guitar, and he was there when I got my camera. We've grown up and spent our lives together, and so when he has these projects that come up, it's always like, hey, Al, can you do me a favor? And I'm always there to help him. And actually, I did we just did a podcast this morning, and in the studio, and Stevie is just animated as can be, as always, and it's an interesting perspective now because we're at that age where I think part of the conversation, or throughout the whole conversation, is why is it that we at our age are still hammering away at it? And where most guys our age are like, well, I think I'm just going to, sit back and watch football all day, or, or looking for getting a mobile home or a motor home, or, just kind of, the lesson is that you have to grab back when you're 35 years old or 40 years old, that knowledge you have, and you got to pull that forward. And I think that's where the story that we had in the podcast today is you just have to continue to be, to reinvent ourselves and rebirth ourselves. And I think it comes down, a lot of it is, the work ethic that it took for us over the years as kids. Nothing was ever handed to us. So when you get used to operating at that level, here's Stevie. He's in Japan all this last week producing a new album, in which went gold this last time around, and it was second on the charts in Japan. He's on the cover of Rolling Stone. He's on the cover of GQ in Japan. So he's an actual. he's was Rod Stewart's guitar player, Mick Jagger's guitar player, guys like Steven Tyler give him a call and say, hey man, let's go do a benefit together. He's that upper level of everybody knows he is an industry guy. So he was laying down some tracks today and for his new project in San Diego. So I buzzed down there really quickly after our podcast, and he's got like Stanley Clark's bass player laying the tracks down, and then he's got who's the guys? A couple other guys that are just laying down some really cool stuff. Lenny Kravitz's drummer, for 9 years, something like that. And these are all his buddies,
Yeah, well, and now Stevie did move. He no longer lives in Oceanside. He moved to...
He comes in the summer for a few months and back and forth all the time. He stays with friends.
Okay.
But he lives in Austin.
Okay.
And he's probably spent more time out of Austin than he does in Austin because he travels so much.
All right, we're speaking with Alan Carrasco, who built something out of nothing, the Carrasco Creative Media Studios here in South O. But it should be noted that you also helped build something out of nothing, which I'm very impressed by this. The Moose Lodge. It's been around for decades, but you went in with some other guys and you said, this is, it can be something great, and you made it into something great.
Well, what's funny is that my son Landon was playing Little League with Jack Feller's his grandkids. And we're sitting in the bleachers, and I said, "Hey, Jack, we're gonna take over the Moose Lodge, and we're gonna turn it into something, right. We're gonna clean it up, And he's like, "Wow, good luck," because at the time
Sure.
the Moose Lodge, the parking lot. You could lose a car in the parking lot. There were the holes. The holes were so
They
deep
were huge,
there,
yes.
and it was just dirt. They had AA upstairs
Alcoholics Anonymous.
and a bar downstairs, if you can believe that.
Right.
And then you've got a head shop next to it.
Which is still there.
It's still there. There was holes in the side of the building where they used to stash, all of their crack. In the Moose Lodge. There was holes in there where they would stash all their drugs. There's
Really?
bums that was sleeping on the outside patio when we took it over.
Lovely.
Yeah. So if you go there today and there's a new asphalt that's outside.
Yep.
One of my buddies, from when I did a whole series with Mission Pools, he came in and did gratis a whole new parking lot for us. The sign that's on the side there is the original sign. A buddy of mine from Ford Signs, Colin, took it off. He went through the whole thing, new lights, everything, and put it back on. I had 5 guys for 5 days just grinding away on the outside before they put like 3 coats of paint on it. And we did that all the way through. We went through all the ceilings. None of the plumbing
And you
worked.
redid the electrical too, which is not easy to do.
No. The plumbing had pans under all the plumbing. The electrical had rat's nest inside the receptacle boxes.
No problem. Nope, nothing to see here.
And the whole place, we had to take the ceiling out that was all this old, I'm sure the stuff that should not be there.
Asbestos. Probably.
Yeah, and smell like smoke. So we gutted the place and I said, okay, guys, 3 colors. White is our base. We got blue, and we got this burnt red. Burnt blue and burnt red. And that's it. We're going to do those 3 colors through the whole place. And we did it. And John Gilley, which is the governor, affectionately known as the governor, who is the reason, really true reason why we were able to do what we did. Because John and I took on the project together, and initially, and we brought in a lot of friends like Steve Mata, Tony Mata, and Mark Buckman, and a bunch of people.
This was about 10 years ago?
About 10 years ago, yeah.
And that place is now, it's just remarkable. It is just so, it's such a cool place to hang out.
Yeah.
And
There was the bar, we had to redo the bar. There was never a stage. We had to build a stage. My buddy Steve Tanner donated his audio, and we started running music, and it became our own little mini Belly Up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just it's a venue, but it is still it's not for the public. You got to become a member, right?
Well, when we initiated it, it was, let's get a bunch of people to become, members. And it went from like 3 or 5, guys sitting in the bar, and they had maybe 20 guys on the list, and most of them were deceased. In fact, there's 3 guys at the bar, which were they're all 80 years old, and they were drinking, their canned beer over ice cubes, and betting at the bar like a quarter for every game that they're watching. That's all it was. It was old timers, and it was, I got inspired because I was on the road, and I was producing television at the time, and I was all over the United States. I did like 45 national 30-minute TV shows and a whole group of work for Enjoy. And I was
Enjoy
burnt.
is the
professional hair care company.
Right.
And I was burnt out. And I saw that things were happening, like Tap House was just coming in.
Yep.
The brewery and stuff like that. And I got really inspired because I wanted to get back to the roots of Oceanside, where I came from. I had a magazine called Breakout Magazine back so when I was a kid, 17 years old, we started Breakout Magazine with George Salvador and Greg Hunter and Bob Yaling and a couple of us, Jerry Calkins, and it was right here across the street from the Blade Tribune, which is where the estate sale place is, where the moose is.
It was a tiny little office.
Tiny little office. And I was 17, and that's how I got my start. So what I'm getting at is that I was so ingrained into California surfing and locally for so many years, and then traveling after that, and then raising a family, and it was really great to get back in the community again. I think that's what the Moose Lodge was really a great thing for me.
Wow, Alan Carrasco, a billion stories. You a true blue Oceanside local, and if you have any doubt, you can go see the plaque. Is there a plaque at Carrasco Park? All right, fair enough. And you can say, "That's my dad." How cool is that, Alan Carrasco? So tell us again, if anybody may want to have a video made or a commercial made or any of that, how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can go to carrascocreative.com, or they can email me if they like at alanc@carrascocreative.com.
Thank you for joining us today on the Big Buccaneer Channel. Sir, thank you very much.
It is my pleasure. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much, Ken.
No problem.
Delicious.
I like it too. Yes, I do like it.
Delicious.
This week's Oside BBC Happy Hour segment takes us to Tap That. For 10 years, it's been serving up tap beers, ales, and ciders by the pint at their home in the Oceanside Industrial Park on Airport Road. and they will also deliver kegs to your home or office for parties and special events. The Tap That Happy Hour prices are in effect all day Monday, and then Tuesday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m., when prices are $1 off pints or glasses of wine. They just serve beer and wine at Tap That. The Tap That Tap Room is regularly home to such rare and special brews as Pliny the Elder and Blind Pig. Currently on tap right now, it's the Triple Jam Cider, made with blueberry, strawberry, and raspberry. And there's many outstanding Southland breweries like Pizza Port, AleSmith, and Brewery X that are also on tap right now at Tap That. And they're on Airport Road near Highway 76.
Oh, have some more. Get the waiter and bring it. Put on the paper hat. Get out the lamp. I even like the cork.
This is the very first edition for 2025 of the Oceanside channel, the big Buccaneer channel, www.OsideBBC, where it's all Oceanside all the time. Welcome to the new year. And we thought we'd close out this show with 10 resolutions. And these, of course, are just ideas. They're just thoughts. They're opinions, but I think they matter, and that's why I'm going to share these 10 resolutions for you. And here goes. Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025 that we have airport accountability. Back when Jerry Kern was a councilman here, he somehow put together a 50-year agreement that the City of Oceanside Airport would be run by some company out of LA no one had ever heard of, and that needs to be looked into by somebody else. But nevertheless, what we need to do now is find out what is going on at the airport. It's completely unregulated. There's no tower. People can land for free any time of the night they want. Who's coming in? Who's getting dropped off? What's getting dropped off? I think we should have greater airport accountability. The place is owned by the City of Oceanside. Let's look into who runs it and what's going on. Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025, no more pack and stack. We have got a new council, and there's all sorts of development going on. People want to come here. And there's, for instance, right there on Mission Avenue, we've got this massive Mission Avenue build out, the NCTD building. That multi-story building on the corner of Nevada and Mission is going to be torn down for, high-density residential units. Across the street at the former Chase building, the brick building at 801 Mission, that's going to be torn down, and they're going to put in a multi-level condominium or apartment unit. The B of A is getting torn down. What's going to happen there? We need to make sure that we have no more disasters like Alta Oceanside, the place right across the street from the Chamber of Commerce, from the Welcome Center, that looks like a penitentiary, like a tenement. It looks horrible, and we need none of that. Hopefully, the new council will figure out We need to have less of that and more quality development and redevelopment.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BBC.
Let it be resolved in Oceanside in 2025, no more free rent. After 25 years, the Chamber of Commerce and their lease where they get free rent, they're the only Chamber of Commerce that gets free rent. They're the only Chamber of Commerce that tries to collect money, in their case from developers, and then put it towards politicians' campaign funds, local Oceanside politicians' campaign funds. They've given up all the jobs they used to do. They let the harbor days die in the vine without letting anyone else wanted to take over, let them take it over. They wouldn't let that happen. The council must do like they do with anybody else, charge going market rate for the building that they own on Coast Highway, now inhabited by the Chamber of Commerce. Every nonprofit that does a after-school program at an Oceanside-owned building, they have to pay rent. Why can't the Chamber of Commerce, that does nothing anymore for the city, why can't they pay their fair rent when it's discussed in the spring or the summer? We hope that the council does the right thing. Be it resolved for 2025 for Oceanside that the Oceanside Police Officers Association endorsement scam be arrested. By that I mean that in this last election, the OPOA, which is basically an employee union, made an endorsement for one city council candidate without asking its members what they thought. They gave lots of money, and their endorsement, which means the candidate was able to say, the Oceanside Police endorses me. Well, I would urge that end and that the Oceanside Police Officers Association, in fact, ask its members what they think instead of one or two people deciding behind closed doors who the entire organization endorses.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BBC.
Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025 that the Oceanside Unified School District talks to people like me who call them up. And I asked them, and I said, so you have an arrangement, you have a memorandum of agreement with the city of Oceanside to let people use various elementary and middle schools to use their playgrounds for public use. That agreement had been signed. Apparently, it's not being enforced or being put into effect. I want the Oceanside Unified School District to start talking to people whoever asks them to answer and say, in this case, what's going on with this arrangement that you have with the city of Oceanside to let the public use their parks and their playgrounds. Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025 that the mobile home crisis be addressed. One of the council members, Mayor Sanchez, went to many of the mobile home parks and said, vote for me or you lose rent control. That was frankly not true at all. The council cannot vote out rent control. It was voted in by the people and can only be voted out by a vote of the people. And I would hope that the mayor and the council address the problems that many of the mobile home people are facing. They're getting evicted as we speak, and there needs to be whatever the help the city can realistically provide to let the mobile home people know that there are some people in the city who want to help them not get evicted and do it in a realistic way.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BBC.
Be it resolved in 2025 that one Trump is enough. Mayor Sanchez, this is specifically a memo to the Mayor Sanchez specifically. Please, no more getting even with other politicians who have maybe done bad things to you in the past. Let's not get even with them and put yourself on all these, be the liaison to all these commissions and committees. You didn't go to most of them when you were on 4, and now you're on 8 commissions and committees. When 2 of your perceived enemies hardly got any. Please, no more appointing members to the Housing Commission who gave you money, who donated to you, and then therefore get to be appointed to the Housing Commission. And please, Mayor Sanchez, if somebody within the city upsets you, please don't try to get them fired. And also, please, if they're a key operative within the city, don't stonewall them and ignore talking to them for months on end. One Trump is enough. Thank you for listening if you are Mayor Sanchez. Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025, no more pop-up cell towers like the one that just happened out of the clear blue at Ridgeway and California Street without anybody knowing about it. Up it goes. It's a horrible eyesore, and it impacts the neighborhood very unfavorably. Let's talk about it within the city to see what we can do about this apparently runaway, anything goes cell tower policy, which is basically a non-policy. Be it resolved in Oceanside in 2025 that the bandshell get the attention that it deserves. The bandshell it needs to be renovated. It seemed like a couple years ago everyone was excited about getting it remodeled, and then everyone it seems like the air went out of the balloon. No one cares anymore. That is a vital, vital piece of public property owned by the city of Oceanside. Let's get excited about the bandshell again, like we did a couple years ago, and try to make it a magnificent state-of-the-art facility. It's the only facility of its type as it is now in California, in Southern California. Let's make it outstanding and have it be something that we're very proud of.
Da da da. Da da da. Da da da. Da da da. Da da da.
That wraps it for our New Year's Day edition for 2025 of the Big Buccaneer channel, www.osidebbc.com. Special thanks to our audio engineer, Von Ramirez, and to our in-studio guest, Alan Carrasco of Carrasco Creative Media. And until next week, this is Ken Treadway saying, thank you, Oceanside.